So, Craig, it's been a while since we have done a podcast. And why don't you fill us in with the most recent developments, starting with gold? What's happening in the gold market? Gold is almost around $3,000 for an ounce.
Yes, the gold price has been rising. Um, we hear that it's a fear of Donald Trump. We hear it's the American budget deficit, it's inflation, it's war, and possibly some of those things are affecting it. But the main effect is the change in the behavior of people in the gold futures market. The way the futures market has always worked, it's a place where people speculate on the price of gold and they settle the contracts in cash. For example, somebody sells a contract to supply gold at a future date. Someone buys that contract. When the contract comes due, the person holding the contract does not take delivery in gold. They settle the contract in cash because they're just out to make speculative profits on betting on the gold price. Well, what has changed suddenly is that the people holding the gold contracts are demanding delivery in gold. There have been huge demands for gold from the COMEX, gold futures market in the United States, from the gold futures market in London, and the futures markets are having great difficulty supplying the gold because they're not accustomed to people taking delivery. So what explains this sudden change in the behavior of the participants? And of course, it's the fact that the people are taking delivery of gold that's the reason the price has gone up. In other words, the demand for physical delivery of gold has increased, so the price has gone up. Well, why has this demand increased? It's because Elon Musk is going to audit Fort Knox to see what gold is there. And it's widely believed either that there's no gold there, or if there is gold, it's not the gold of the United States. It's gold deposited there of other countries for safekeeping. And so the explanation is either the Federal Reserve, the American Central Bank, or the U.S. Treasury are creating money to buy gold contracts in order to take delivery of gold so that they can put gold back in Fort Knox before the audit. Well, this makes sense because who else would have the money to be taking delivery of tons of gold? Not hedge funds, not Elon Musk, not billionaires. These are massive amounts of gold, and it takes the Federal Reserve and or the Treasury to come up with the kind of money that explains the heavy deliveries of gold that are being demanded in the future market when the contracts come due. So it's this change in behavior. See, previously, people holding the contracts were content to settle in cash and pocket the gain or the loss. Now they're saying, no, we want the gold. Give us the gold. And the only explanation for the amounts is the Fed, the Treasury. And so they're putting the gold back into Fort Knox before the audit.
Do you want to make any predictions on how high the gold price could go?
I have no idea because I don't know how much gold they want to put back because we don't know what's there or not there. You see, members of the House of Representatives in the U.S. Senate have been trying for years to get an audit of Fort Knox. In fact, they've been denied the ability to visit to see with their eyes if there's any gold. They can't even get in the place. So when the U.S. Senate can't get into Fort Knox, it tells you something isn't right. And so, what's likely to happen if people are caught up in the rise in the gold price and they all start jumping in themselves? Well, the rise in the price could stop once the Fed or the Treasury think they've got enough gold and they stop buying these future contracts demanding delivery in gold. Then the price might fall. But that, I think, is the explanation for the rise in the gold price and explains the change in the behavior in the futures markets. Uh, Many gold bullion dealers have believed for a long time that the gold in Fort Knox was leased out to bullion dealers to sell into the market in order to hold down the price of gold. It was a way of protecting the dollar's value. Now, the gold, they say, was leased because if it's a lease, it doesn't have to be reported as a sale, and the Fed or the Treasury can claim they still own the gold, even though it's gone and has been sold. Another thing that happens to the gold is that, well, remember the case of the Germans a few years ago. They asked for the gold back, and the United States told them they could have it in 7 years. In other words, it wasn't there, so it couldn't be delivered to Germany. Well, after about 5 years, they got about half of it. I don't know if they've ever got the rest of it. Well, where could that gold have been? Well, there's a practice by which there's some kind of a financial deal going on. People borrow the gold as collateral for a deal. And so the gold might still be physically present in Fort Knox, but the ownership is no longer Germany. It's the person who's borrowed it. And so there's no gold available to send to the Germans. So this practice of allowing gold to be used as collateral in transactions between parties who are not owners of the gold is called rehypothecation. Rehypothecation. That can also be going on, so that whatever gold is there, it might, who owns it? Who does it belong to? And how do you get it back? And so I think that's what's going on. Fed and the Treasury buying as much as they can to stick in there before the audit. So we can move on to another topic. I think that explains that one.
What about the war in Europe, Ukraine and Russia? What do you think will happen, and what has happened in the past few days?
Well, I think that Trump and his vice president have made it clear in highly visible public forums that they don't intend war. They don't want any war. It's a distraction from Trump's domestic agenda. You know, if particularly if this breaks into a bigger war between the United States and Russia, actually, not a proxy war, but a real war, the call goes out for national unity, and that means Trump has to call off his attack on the American establishment that he is in the process of weeding out and overthrowing. So Trump doesn't want a war. He also doesn't want it because he and Elon Musk, have promised to reduce the deficit by $1 trillion. Well, if you're at war, you can't, it's going to go up $1 trillion. So for both budgetary reasons and for the reason of his domestic agenda, which is what's important to him, he's ruled war out. So I think that Putin can find a very amenable Trump with which to work out the deal that ends that process. The minute the United States stops sending weapons and money, the war is over. There's no other way for Ukraine to be armed or financed.
One possibility could be that the money that Europe seized, around $300 billion from the oligarchs, maybe they could use that to finance the war.
Well, so far the United States wasn't willing to do that, and whether Europe would do it on their own, particularly with Trump sort of cold shouldering Europe, because he's not really interested in NATO, the Atlantic Alliance. All of this is a distraction. People don't understand it in the rest of the world, but what's going on in the United States is actually a revolution. The American establishment that has so thoroughly institutionalized itself in every American institution, both private and public, is under attack from Trump and his administration because it is totally corrupt. The information that's already come out, that Musk has pried out, shows the most corrupt use of the federal budget, of the taxpayers' money. It's really a situation where the budget is a monstrous slush fund for the Democrat Party, for the American left wing, for all kinds of anti-American causes that the people don't know anything about. And this is all coming to the fore. And also, they are cleaning out personnel who have been actively working against American principles. They're clearing out all the DEI stuff, all the propaganda operations. And so this is a thoroughgoing fight. See, I think Trump understands it's a fight to the death. Just remember, the American establishment spent 8 years trying to destroy him. They tried to ruin him politically. They twice impeached him. They tried to steal his property. They tried to imprison him. They tried to kill him, both with gunshots and with 8 years of stress. For a person his age to withstand that stress is unusual. And so he knows what the fight is. And if you look at his appointees, they're totally different than his first term when he was very naive and unaware. He's got people in there who are aggressive, who are committed. And it's surprising. This young-looking blonde woman, he's made attorney general. She looks like somebody you would like to have a date with. But she's gone after the governor of New York, the attorney general of New York. I mean, she is one tough person. And so a lot of people are being held accountable who never expected to be held accountable. So when you take into account that he is in a big war, he doesn't want any war with Russia or Iran even, or anybody else. So I think the prospects, unless somehow the Russians blow it somehow, of this ending are very good.
Could the establishment somehow stage an event that will fool Trump and lead him into a war?
Yes, it's a danger that Israel, for example, stages a false flag attack. I doubt it would fool Trump, but it could fool the public. The media would fool the public. They would present it as a serious attack on America. We have to do something about it. In other words, Trump could see it's a false flag, but still politically be forced into it. And I think there is a danger. Whether it would be some elements in the military security complex in the United States or whether it would be Israel itself, but it's a possibility, or both of them together. That's a possibility. We should be aware of that. because if we're aware of it and talk about it in advance, it's less likely to succeed. That's really, I think, the best way the American establishment has at this time of derailing Trump is to get him diverted off into a war, because wars are all consuming. Everything else goes on the back burner, calls for unity. So you have to stop attacking the people you're trying to overthrow. But I suspect Trump and his supporters know this and would be very reluctant to be taken in by it. But it's always a possibility.